You are fired! The words hit me like a punch to the gut as I stared in disbelief at my boss's smug face. My crime? Being 5 minutes late. 5 minutes late. What my boss didn't know as he threw away my 7-year career was that I'd just saved our $25 million client from total disaster. I'd worked through the entire night, my fingers flying across the keyboard until 6 a.m., rescuing their critical files before their government presentation. As security walked me out, box in hand, I felt something break inside me. But that broken feeling? It wouldn't last long. Because 3 days later, I watched that same boss turn ghost white as I walked into the conference room where he was desperately trying to keep that $25 million client. The client who was now asking for me. "Hello, Steve," I said calmly, enjoying how his hands started to shake. "Surprised to see me? I'm Emma Wilson, and this is how I went from humiliated ex-employee to watching my former boss beg for his job. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to how it all started." "Working late again, Emma?" Maria from accounting asked as she walked by my desk Thursday night. Almost everyone had gone home already. I looked up, my tired eyes blinking behind my glasses. "Yeah, these reports are killing me." "You need a life outside these walls," she laughed, fixing her purse strap. "We're going to Cindy's for drinks. Come with us." I smiled, feeling a little warm inside. Maria was always nice to me. Not everyone makes friends with the Aussie tech girl with the funny accent. "Maybe next time? I have to finish this work for the Hexagon meeting tomorrow." "Your loss," she sighed. "But honestly, Reynolds won't even notice how hard you're working. That man couldn't spot good work if it danced naked in front of him." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for the client." After she left, I went back to work with the soft buzz of computers in the background. My desk was a mess, but in a way that made sense to me. 3 screens with different charts, a photo of my parents on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, a little kangaroo toy my nephew gave me for luck, and my beat-up computer manual. I've been with Pinnacle since I moved to the States 7 years ago. Back in Australia, I was already known for fixing broken computer data. When companies lose important files, they call me. I'm like a digital detective. I find lost files and fix them. In real people words, I save jobs and sometimes whole companies. The work is hard, but I love solving puzzles. Each broken file is a mystery waiting to be fixed. Over time, I became known as the miracle worker at Pinnacle, the person who could find any lost data. Everyone in the company knew about my skills. Everyone except Steve Reynolds, my boss for the last 2 years. He never liked me much. I think my accent annoyed him, and he hated that I knew more than him about computers. My phone rang at 11:42 p.m. Thursday night as I was packing up to go home to my apartment in Wicker Park. It was Calvin Jackson, the tech boss at Hexagon Aerospace. "Emma, thank God you answered." His voice sounded super stressed. "We've got a huge problem." My stomach dropped. Hexagon was our biggest client, worth $25 million to us. They were giving a big presentation to the government the next morning. "What's wrong?" I asked, already feeling worried. "Our computers crashed, everything's gone, all our presentation files, 6 months of work, just gone." I heard people panicking in the background. "The files for tomorrow's meeting are lost." I quickly opened my laptop again. "Did you call our emergency team?" "They said it would take 1-2 days to fix. We don't have days, Emma. Our meeting is at 9 a.m. tomorrow." I felt sick. This was really bad. The kind of problem that gets people fired. "Text me how to get into your system. I'll try to help." "You're a lifesaver. I owe you big time." I called an Uber back to my apartment on North Milwaukee Avenue. I needed my special equipment for this job. As we drove through the dark Chicago streets, I knew I was in for a long night. By 1 a.m., I was at my dining table with extra hard drives, cooling fans, and lots of coffee. The damage was worse than I thought. The files weren't just broken. They were in tiny pieces all over the place. Time flew by. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. My back hurt, my eyes stung, but I kept working. Bit by bit, I put their files back together. Around 5:30 a.m., as the sun started to come up, I fixed the last important file. "Done," I whispered to my empty apartment. I felt so proud as I sent the fixed files to Calvin. He texted back right away. "You did it! Looking at everything now, but it seems perfect. You just saved us millions. I can't thank you enough." I smiled at my phone, feeling tired but happy. This is why I love my job. After a quick shower, I headed to work. The repair took longer than I expected, and morning traffic on the Kennedy was terrible. I was going to be late. The clock in the lobby said 9:05 a.m. when I scanned my badge. 5 minutes late. First time ever in 7 years. I rushed to my desk, put down my bag, and had just turned on my computer when a shadow fell over me. "Miss Wilson, so nice of you to join us." I looked up to see Steve Reynolds' angry face. He was 43, always wore perfectly ironed shirts, and had neatly combed reddish hair. He always looked like he just smelled something bad. "Sorry, Steve. I was up all night fixing data for—" "Save it," he interrupted, looking at his watch. "My office. Now." I followed him, feeling sick to my stomach. Through the glass walls of his corner office, I could see the Chicago River below. "Close the door," he said, sitting down at his desk. I closed it and sat down too. "What time do we start work here at Pinnacle?" he asked in that tone that made me feel like a naughty schoolgirl. I hated that tone. 9 o'clock, I said, too tired to hide my annoyance. "Steve, I worked until 6 a.m. fixing Hexagon's files. Their whole presentation was—" He held up his hand to stop me. "I don't care about your excuses, Emma. Rules are rules. We've talked about your attitude before." We hadn't, actually. In 7 years, he'd never once complained about my work or attitude. But I knew what this was really about. 2 months ago, I corrected him in front of the big bosses when he got some technical stuff completely wrong. His face got all red, and I could tell he was mad about being corrected by a woman, especially one with an accent he made fun of behind my back. "We need reliable people here," he continued, "people who understand professionalism." He straightened a pen on his desk. "People who know their place." My heart raced as I realized what was happening. "Steve, I just stayed up all night saving our biggest client's data. I've never been late before. This is crazy." "This is the final straw in your pattern of disrespect," he said, pushing a folder toward me. "Your termination papers are ready. You'll be paid until the end of the month, but today is your last day." I felt like someone punched me in the gut. "You're firing me? For being 5 minutes late? For repeated policy violations and disrespect?" His voice was flat. He had planned this. "It will watch you clean out your desk. Your computer access is already cut off." My hands started shaking. "This is insane. I've given 7 years to this company. My clients all love me. I just saved Hexagon's presentation." "Ah, yes, Hexagon." A small, smug smile appeared on his face. "I'll be personally handling their account from now on. I have a meeting with Calvin Jackson next week about our future relationship." That's when I got it. This wasn't about being late. This wasn't even about me correcting him months ago. This was about Hexagon. Steve wanted their account, the status, the bonus money, and I was in his way. I stood up slowly, suddenly feeling weirdly calm. "You'll regret this, Steve." His smile got bigger, showing his teeth like a shark. "Is that a threat, Miss Wilson? Not very professional. Security can walk you out if needed." "That won't be necessary," I said, turning to leave. "But remember this moment." As I packed my stuff into a cardboard box, my kangaroo toy, the photo, my coffee mug, I felt numb. 7 years reduced to one box and a shameful walk through the office, while co-workers stared, whispered, or looked away. Maria caught me at the elevator. "What the hell happened?" she whispered, looking shocked. "Ask Steve," I said as the doors opened. "Apparently being 5 minutes late gets you fired when you're not a middle-aged man in a suit." The security guard walked me through the lobby and out onto Wacker Drive. The spring sun seemed way too bright. I stood there holding my box, watching people go in and out of the building. Their lives were normal while mine had just exploded. I took a deep breath of city air. Car exhaust mixed with the smell of pretzels from the vendor on the corner. 7 years. Gone in 7 minutes. That night I went through all the emotions. Shock, disbelief, and finally, pure rage. I threw my coffee mug against the wall and watched it shatter. Then I cried for an hour. After that, I decided to try being reasonable. I wrote a detailed email to Pinnacle's HR director explaining everything. I included proof of my all-night work for Hexagon, and mentioned my perfect attendance for 7 years. I asked them to review my firing and at least give me a proper exit interview. The answer came the next morning. We've reviewed your termination and found it follows company policy. Good luck in your future career. 3 cold sentences. 7 years dismissed just like that. Next, I tried calling Jennifer Winters, the CEO. I'd met her at company parties and she always seemed nice. Her assistant said she was unavailable for the foreseeable future but would pass along my concerns. Yeah, right. By Monday afternoon, I knew being nice wasn't working. I sat at my kitchen table, staring out at the Chicago skyline, feeling lost. Back in Australia, my mum would say I was up the creek without a paddle. I missed home so much right then. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Emma, it's Calvin Jackson from Hexagon. I sat up straight. Calvin, hi, how did the presentation go? We nailed it. The Department of Defense loved it. We got the contract. He sounded super happy. Thanks to you. But that's why I'm calling. I tried to reach you at Pinnacle and they said you don't work there anymore? My throat got tight. That's right. I was fired on Friday morning. What? Why? The official reason? Being 5 minutes late, the real reason? I'm pretty sure Steve Reynolds wants to take over the Hexagon account himself. Silence. You were fired the morning after saving our entire presentation? After working all night? Yep. Another silence, longer this time. When Calvin spoke again, his voice sounded different, colder, more serious. Interesting. Well, I'm calling because we're having some problems with the recovered files. There's something weird about how they're organized that we can't figure out. I felt a little proud that they needed my help. What kind of problems? Hard to explain on the phone. Steve said he'd handle it, but... He paused. Look, we have history, you and me. 7 years of good work. I trust you. Can you come to our office? As a paid consultant? We'll pay you, of course. I didn't even have to think about it. I can be there in an hour. Perfect. I'll tell security to expect you. As I changed into work clothes, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe getting fired could turn into something good. Maybe I could work with Hexagon directly now. Hexagon's offices were in a fancy building in the West Loop. When I got there, the afternoon sun was making long shadows between the buildings. The security guard checked my ID and sent me to the 30th floor. Calvin met me at the elevator with a big smile. After days of feeling rejected, seeing his friendly face was so nice. Thank God you're here. This way. He took me to a conference room where 3 worried-looking IT guys were staring at a laptop. For the next 2 hours, I helped them understand the file system I created during my emergency fix. When we finished, Calvin walked me to his office, a corner room with amazing views of Lake Michigan and the city. I can't thank you enough, he said, closing the door. You've saved us twice now. I tried to smile. Just doing my job. Or, what was my job? Calvin's face got serious. About that, I've been making some phone calls. He leaned against his desk. How Pinnacle treated you isn't right. Not just morally, but business-wise too. We chose Pinnacle mainly because of you, Emma. Your skills, your reliability. I had no idea. Thank you. That means a lot to hear. It's just the truth. He crossed his arms. We have a meeting with Steve Reynolds on Wednesday about our contract renewal. My heart dropped. Despite helping them today, Hexagon would probably stick with Pinnacle. That's just how business works. I understand, I said, reaching for my bag. I'm glad I could help today. Wait. Calvin held up his hand. I'm not done. What if I told you we're looking at other options? I blinked. Other options? Pinnacle isn't the only data company in Chicago, and honestly, if they're going to throw away talent like you over office politics, I don't think they deserve our business. I felt something rise in my chest. Hope. Satisfaction. That would be their loss. Calvin smiled. Exactly. He handed me a business card. Call this person tomorrow. It's the CEO of Meridian Systems. Tell them I sent you. I stared at the fancy card. Meridian was Pinnacle's biggest rival. And Emma, Calvin said as I reached the door, keep Wednesday at 2 p.m. open. You might get an interesting phone call. Later that night, as I sat watching Chicago's lights, Something important hit me. The way I fixed Hexagon's files wasn't the normal way Pinnacle does it. I used my own special method, one I created but never told the company about. This meant their recovered files worked perfectly, but they were organized my way. Without me explaining how I did it, anyone trying to work with those files would get stuck. I looked at the notes I'd sent Calvin after fixing everything. They were good notes, but they assumed you understood technical stuff that Steve Reynolds had no clue about. I'd used shortcuts and special tricks that made sense to me, but would be gibberish to others. As I realized this, a slow smile spread across my face. If Steve tried to manage the Hexagon account like he bragged about, he'd hit problems only I could solve. I hadn't planned this, but I had to admit how perfect it was. The skills Steve threw away were now my secret weapon. The next morning, I called the number Calvin gave me. Within hours, I was at Meridian Systems on South LaSalle Street, talking to their tech director about my background. By day's end, they offered me a job, 20% higher pay than Pinnacle, better benefits, and a direct role working with clients. "We've been trying to steal Hexagon from Pinnacle for years," the director said with a grin. "If you can help make that happen, there's a big signing bonus for you." I said yes right away. We agreed I'd start the next Monday. As I left their building, walking past big banks in the financial district, I felt many emotions: relief at landing on my feet, satisfaction at being vindicated, and excitement about what Wednesday might bring. That night, Calvin texted me, "All set for Wednesday, be ready." Tuesday was prep day. If Calvin was planning what I thought, I needed to be ready. I gathered proof of all my work with Hexagon over the years, successful recoveries, innovations, money-saving ideas I'd created. I collected emails from clients praising my work, including ones sent to Steve that he'd ignored. I also wrote up a detailed technical document explaining exactly how I recovered Hexagon's files. This would be my ace card, proof of my special knowledge that belonged to me, not Pinnacle. I also called Maria from Pinnacle's accounting. "Can we talk?" I texted. "About what happened? Hell yes," she replied immediately. "Starbucks on Michigan and Randolph in 30. Over coffee, Maria told me about the office chaos. "It's a mess, Emma. Nobody understands why you were fired. Steve's been acting like he got promoted, telling everyone he's personally handling Hexagon now." "How's that going for him?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Maria snorted. "Not great. He was on a call with them this morning and everyone could hear him getting confused. He kept saying he'd get back to them on technical questions." She stirred her latte hard. "Oh, and Jennifer came back from her business trip and asked about you in the executive meeting. Steve told her you left mutually due to cultural fit issues." My blood boiled. That phrase was always used to get rid of people with accents or different backgrounds. Cultural fit, right? "Everyone knows it's garbage," Maria assured me, "and Hexagon isn't happy. They moved up their contract review meeting to tomorrow. Steve's been panicking, trying to get the IT team to explain some data thing they don't understand." I hid my smile. "That's too bad." "So what's next for you?" Maria asked. "I have some opportunities," I said vaguely. "Actually, I need a favor. Can you text me when Steve's meeting with Hexagon starts tomorrow? And let me know who's there?" Maria's eyes lit up with mischievous understanding. Done. Wednesday came with perfect spring weather. Clear blue skies, 70 degrees, a gentle breeze from Lake Michigan. By 1:30 p.m. I was dressed in my best suit, charcoal grey with thin stripes, a bright teal blouse that my mum always said made my brown eyes sparkle. Professional, powerful, prepared. At 1:45, Maria texted, "Meeting starting now. Conference room A, Steve, Jennifer, 2 VPs and 4 Hexagon people including their CEO. Interesting. Jennifer being there meant bigger stakes than I'd expected. At exactly 2 p.m, Calvin called. "Ready?" he asked. "I'm all set. We're in conference room A, north elevator, 27th floor. Your old badge still works in the lobby. Security will bring you up." My heart raced as I grabbed my folder and left. The Uber ride to North Wacker seemed both too long and too short. Soon I was in the familiar lobby of my old workplace. The security guard who'd escorted me out now nodded respectfully as another officer led me to the executive elevators. We rode up silently. When the doors opened, I could see through the glass walls of conference room A. Steve was standing, pointing dramatically at a slide. Calvin sat with his back to the door. Jennifer and the Pinnacle VPs sat opposite, looking tense. The officer knocked once and opened the door, absolutely committed to maintaining the highest level of service. Steve stopped mid-sentence as everyone turned to the door. The look on his face when he saw me was perfect. Shock, confusion, and the start of fear. "Miss Wilson," Jennifer said, her forehead creased. "This is unexpected." Calvin stood. "I invited her. Hope you don't mind." "Actually, I do mind." Steve jumped in. "Miss Wilson no longer works here, and this is a private client meeting." "That's exactly why I asked her to join us," Calvin said smoothly. "Since she no longer works at Pinnacle, Hexagon hired her as an independent consultant to help us evaluate our data management partnerships." I stepped into the room, nodding politely to Jennifer and the VPs. "Good afternoon. Sorry to interrupt." Steve's face turned bright red. "This is completely inappropriate. Miss Wilson was fired for cause, and having her here is a security risk." "Fired for cause?" Hexagon's CEO, Patricia Morales, raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Jackson told me she was fired for being 5 minutes late after working all night to save our presentation. Is that right?" Everyone looked at Steve. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Maybe we should clear things up," Jennifer said carefully. "Steve, you told me she left by mutual agreement because she didn't fit our culture." "It was a pattern of disrespect," Steve managed, looking around nervously. "Multiple violations ending with tardiness." I cleared my throat. "With respect, that's not true. In 7 years at Pinnacle, I was never late until last Friday. I was 5 minutes late after working from 11:42 p.m. until 6 a.m. to fix Hexagon's crashed database. I have the computer logs and Mr. Jackson's messages to prove this." "Which brings us to why we're really here," Calvin said. "Hexagon is concerned about how our account will be managed, specifically about the special recovery method Miss Wilson used." Jennifer turned to Steve. "What special method is he talking about?" Steve looked uncomfortable. "It's a standard Pinnacle recovery protocol. Our team has all the documentation." "That's not true," I said quietly but firmly. "I used my own method that I created. It's not documented in Pinnacle's systems because it's not Pinnacle's property. It's mine." The room went completely silent. "Is this true?" Jennifer asked Steve, whose face now showed real panic. Before he could answer, Calvin slid a document across the table. "This is a technical assessment from our IT department. They confirmed the recovery method is unlike anything Pinnacle has used for us before. When we asked Mr. Reynolds to explain certain aspects yesterday, he couldn't." One of the Pinnacle VPs picked up the document and read it. His expression grew more serious. "Furthermore," Calvin continued, "Miss Wilson performed this work after hours on her personal equipment. Pinnacle fired her before she could document or transfer this knowledge. We're concerned about service continuity." Jennifer stared coldly at Steve. "I see. What solutions do you propose, Mr. Jackson?" Calvin smiled. "2 options. Option 1. Pinnacle rehires Miss Wilson with appropriate compensation, recognition, and guarantees against future misunderstandings. She manages our account directly, reporting to you, Miss Winters, not Mr. Reynolds." Steve made a choking sound. "And option 2? Jennifer asked. "Option 2 is that Hexagon transfers our $25 million contract to a competitor who has already hired Miss Wilson and can provide the continuity we require." The room felt 10 degrees colder. Jennifer looked openly furious as she turned to Steve. "Mr. Reynolds, please leave. We'll discuss this personnel matter later." Steve looked like he might argue, but one look at Jennifer's face changed his mind. He gathered his papers with shaking hands and left, avoiding my eyes. When the door closed, Jennifer turned to me. "Miss Wilson, I owe you an apology. There's been a serious lapse in management judgment. I wasn't fully informed about your termination." I nodded, staying professional despite feeling victorious. "I understand. These things happen in large organizations." "They shouldn't," she said firmly. "Now, regarding Mr. Jackson's options, I'd very much like to discuss option 1, if you're willing. Pinnacle values your contributions and expertise. We'd like to make amends for this unfortunate situation." I took a deep breath. This was my moment of power. I could return triumphantly with better terms and Steve out of my way. Or I could leave for Meridian, taking Hexagon's huge contract with me. The room waited in tense silence for my response. "I appreciate the offer, Miss Winters," I said carefully, "and I've valued my time at Pinnacle. However, I've accepted a position with another firm starting Monday." Jennifer's face fell. "I see. Can I ask that you reconsider your position on this, given new circumstances?" I looked at Calvin, who nodded slightly. We'd discussed this possibility. "I might be open to discussing terms," I said, "if certain conditions were met." Relief flashed across Jennifer's face. "Excellent. Perhaps we could continue this in my office. Mr. Jackson, would you and your team excuse us?" Calvin stood. "Of course, but I want to be clear. Hexagon's contract renewal depends on Emma's involvement, regardless of which firm employs her." "Understood," Jennifer said, shaking Calvin's hand. "We won't let you down again." As we left the conference room, I saw Steve watching from his office. His face showed disbelief and anger. Our eyes met briefly, and I gave him the smallest, most professional smile before turning away. In the hallway, Calvin gently squeezed my arm. "You were right. That look on his face was worth the wait." The talks with Jennifer lasted 2 hours. I got rehired at Pinnacle with a 30% salary increase, a director-level title, direct reporting to the CTO, and a formal apology in my personnel file. Steve Reynolds was moved to an administrative role with no client contact. By the end of the day, news had spread throughout the company. As I walked through the office to get some personal items, former colleagues stopped to welcome me back. Many offered quiet congratulations or expressed outrage at how I'd been treated. Maria practically tackled me with a hug. "You absolute legend," she whispered. "The whole accounting department is throwing a party for you tomorrow." I laughed. "I appreciate it, but let's keep things professional. No need to gloat." "Speak for yourself," she grinned. "Some of us have been waiting years to see Steve knocked down." As I approached my old desk, I noticed Steve clearing out his office, shoving items into boxes with barely controlled fury. Our eyes met through the glass, and for a moment I considered walking over to say something generous. Instead, I simply nodded professionally and returned to gathering my things. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. The next day, I got an official email from Hexagon's CEO. He thanked me for my great service and honesty. He also confirmed their new 3-year contract with Pinnacle, now worth $27 million with more services. By Monday, I was in my new office. It was a corner office on the 28th floor with views of the Chicago River. A VP used to have this office. He was happy to move and give it to the hero who saved the Hexagon account. My new team had 6 computer experts. They seemed impressed and a little scared by the stories about my amazing comeback. Steve had been moved to a windowless office near the supply room, his client portfolio redistributed among other managers. Word around the office was that he'd be pursuing other opportunities within the month. That afternoon, Calvin stopped by. "Settling in okay?" "Getting there," I said, gesturing to the half-unpacked boxes. "Still feels a bit surreal." He nodded. "Justice usually does. By the way, Patricia was impressed with how you handled everything. She'd like you to come speak at their leadership conference next month. Topic of your choice." I raised an eyebrow. "Any suggestions?" "Professional resilience seems appropriate," he said with a smile. "Or maybe how to turn a 5-minute delay into a career advancement." We both laughed. Through my new office windows, I could see the Chicago skyline stretching out before me, the afternoon sun glinting off glass and steel. 7 years of work, nearly destroyed in 7 minutes, and then restored in ways I could never have anticipated. 2 months later, I was having lunch at Piccolo Sogno on West Grand Avenue with my parents, celebrating my mother's birthday. As we sat in the sun-dappled courtyard, my father raised his glass. "To my brilliant daughter, who always lands on her feet." My mother smiled warmly. "And who never forgets where she comes from or what she's worth." I clinked glasses with them, feeling a deep contentment. I learned from the best, Dad's stubborn Scottish determination and Mum's tough Aussie spirit. "Speaking of determination," my father said, "your mother told me what happened at Pinnacle. Quite the corporate showdown." I shrugged, cutting into my grilled salmon. "It wasn't about revenge, really. Just correction." My mother's eyes twinkled. What goes around comes around. With a little nudge, my father added with a wink. I laughed. Maybe. But you know what I realized through all this? I'd been so focused on proving myself, on being indispensable, that I'd forgotten to advocate for my own value. I was doing the work of a director while accepting the treatment of an entry-level employee. My mother nodded sagely. There's an old saying from your gran. Respect is not given freely. Sometimes you must demand it. Well, I'm definitely demanding now, I said, taking a sip of wine. My new team is fantastic. Jennifer checks in weekly to make sure I have everything I need, and 3 more clients have specifically requested to work with me. And what about that other company? Meridian? My father asked. We parted on good terms. They understood the situation and even suggested we might collaborate on some projects in the future. I smiled. Turns out my cultural fit issues were actually a professional asset. As we finished our lunch and walked along the Chicago Riverwalk, watching boats glide beneath the bridges, I reflected on how quickly life could change. In just a few months, I'd gone from feeling powerless to finding my voice, from being discarded to being valued. The lesson wasn't that loyalty didn't matter, but that it had to flow both ways. The specialized knowledge I developed wasn't just technical expertise. It was understanding my own worth and having the courage to demand the respect I deserved, and the boldness to look for it somewhere else if I needed to.